Hey, it's another episode of Into the LightWeb podcast with me, Joanna Hunter. And today's question is anonymous. And it is about going through divorce and children being manipulated. So it's going to be a really, really juicy episode. And we have a lot to say about this. So stay tuned and we'll get into it. Hey, and a very warm welcome to the Into the LightWeb podcast with me, your hostess, Joanna Hunter, metaphysical teacher, spiritual life and business coach, published author, and the high priestess of the LightWeb, a spiritual technology that will change your life. This is the place to be to talk everything under the LightWeb, from consciousness, relationships, to money, to spiritual business, and everything in between. Hey, it's Joanna Hunter here for another episode of Into the LightWeb podcast, and we are super excited to be sharing this episode. So the question that we have is, I would love some insight on the nature of parent-child relationships from a source perspective. How do I stay in alignment in the face of their father deliberately manipulating and alienating them from me as part of the divorce process? So let's get into it. So this situation can be applied to many different situations. Obviously, in this situation, we have a mother who is feeling very, very much victimized by the ex-husband and going through this divorce proceedings, and the father of her children also as well using or weaponizing the children. Now, this can happen in work situations where, people turn other work colleagues against you, or this can happen in situations with friends groups. It can happen in a myriad of situations, and the cure, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, that this can happen in lots of different places, is that even if you are not going through this exact scenario, the information that I'm about to share with you and help you navigate all of these things. So the first thing that we have to break down is where we are connecting to the victim energy. So in this world, Skylar teaches that there is only two energies. There's source energy and void energy. Void energy is what connects us to an internal victim story, which then generates and creates an external victim reality. When we're connected to source, it connects us to an internal winner story, and it therefore creates an external kind of winner, external world view, or reality. So the first thing that we have here is I can feel, because I'm an empath, I can feel when you write these questions, let me tell you, I can feel your emotions from them. So I can feel the emotion of frustration here, of feeling like I'm trying my best, I'm trying to show up for my children and be there for my kids, but feeling that those children are being manipulated, and feeling that you are out of control and the situation is out with your control, and also as well feeling that it doesn't matter what you do, or those sort of things, right? So like the helplessness, the feeling disempowered within this situation. And I think this is very common. So the first thing when we're feeling all of these feelings is that often when we're feeling these feelings, it means that we are connected to void energy. Okay. So this is not always an easy situation to navigate in life. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to examine the stories that this person is, deliberately manipulating and alienating them from me. And that may very, very well be your actual reality right now. The first thing that I want you to do is to disconnect from this idea that it is a battle. Okay, because what I want you to understand is that if you are on this side and there's this other side and you're having to fight it out, and in this scenario, we are fighting it out for the affection of the children. as you push, it generates an equal and opposite energy in the universe, and the universe pushes back. And in this time, the pushback is coming from the ex-husband. So in taking control of the situation here, what we need to do is we need to move from a resistant push situation to a flow situation. So the first thing that I would do in a situation like this is really get word to my children that I love them very, very much, that my door to my home is always open to them, and that they are very much wanted and loved. If I felt very aggrieved at the father for manipulating and I feel comfortable doing this, I would say that to the children. I would say that I feel that your father is manipulating you and saying things about me that isn't really quite true and things. But, if you want to discuss them with me, the door is always open. You see, the thing is that we have to appreciate as human beings is, do we like to be told what to do? Do we like to be told what to think? Do we like to be told how to conform? There isn't many human beings that really enjoy that state of energy. It's nice, maybe now and again, if you're feeling lost and someone comes along and says, right, here's what we're going to do, great. But on a daily, day-to-day basis, eventually, as a human being, that will grate. Why? Because we're hardwired and designed to learn to think for ourselves. So after a while, when we have a very manipulative energy, what's going to happen is that energy is going to keep trying to control the situation. And this is where a lot of pain on your side is coming from, because you are also trying to control the situation. This person's trying to control the situation, and you feel like they are manipulating your children, and you feel like they are alienating them from you. And you are trying to control the situation so that they don't feel alienated and that they don't feel manipulator, or they're not being manipulated. But nowhere within the side of your husband and currently your side is the freedom for your children to think for themselves and to be free thinking human beings. And ultimately that belongs to source connection, and that belongs to truth. And I feel like in this world, truth always rises to the top. It's like cream, it will always rise to the top. And so by respecting that your children are able to formulate a truthful situation for themselves, then what you do is you allow that kind of cream to rise to the top, because the truth always rises to the top. And sometimes is difficult for people or other people to see when somebody is being really, really manipulative, because another trait that we have as human beings is that we quite often just take people at face value and we believe what they say. So because we have this innate inside us to believe what others say to us, and that is because of our connection to the truth, right? We don't suspect that other people are constantly lying or constantly manipulating. That comes later on in life, after maybe having gone through that trauma many, many times. We start to get more suspicious about people. I'm going to tell you a story from my own personal life. So in my own life, I had a family member by relationship. So somebody who'd come into, had a relationship with another family member, and this person was extremely, extremely manipulative. And I could see it really clearly, clear as day. And I tried to highlight it many times to my other family members. And I was told that it's better to have a friend than an enemy. I was told that keep the peace. So for a long, long time, I bit my tongue. I said nothing. I kept quiet about the whole situation. And then eventually, this person turned out to be a pathological liar and lied constantly about everything. Like even things that you would not even think to lie about, just very basic things, but like whether the grass was green or not, that they would probably make up a lie about that. And it was really difficult. And somebody like myself who's also an empath, it was a double kind of whammy, because not only did I feel the deception at a really, really deep inner level, but I also felt how other people were completely sucked in by this person. And to me, it was so utterly obvious that this person was not who they said that they were. They didn't really, like, very rarely did they speak anything that had an ounce of truth in it. It was often very manipulative and extremely dishonest. And I find that really, really difficult. It's one of the things that I really struggle with, is dishonest people and manipulative people, because of these reasons. I so eventually it came to a point where this person had told a lie, and it was really, for my personal opinion, a lie too far. And I then decided to really check in with myself. And I'm going to share with you my favorite coaching question of all time that Skylar channeled to me, which is, what is the most loving thing I can do for myself? So I tapped in and tuned into this energy, and I asked myself, what is the most loving thing I can do for myself in this moment? And it was to step away. And not only was it to step away from the relationship with this person, but also the relationships that were interconnected to this person. Now, in your situation, when we're talking about your children, it feels like, well, maybe I can't step away. I don't want to step away from my children. Stepping away is about giving space. I knew that I did not like who I was becoming. I knew that it was starting to wreck my relationship with myself, because, under other people's advice, it was like, keep the peace. But when you keep the peace, you often start a war inside yourself. And that's what it was. I felt like I was at war with myself. I was like being nice to this person to their face, when inside I was just thinking, you are such a liar. Like, everything that comes out your mouth is such utter bullshit. And it was, I didn't like that I would be nice to someone's face and then have those thoughts at the same time, because that felt dishonest to my own self relationship. So in the end, I decided to step away, and this relationship continued for another year. And then completely and utterly, what it appears to me, and also to the other family members that were involved, out of the blue, she terminated the relationship and walked away. And it seemed very, very much out of the blue. And then, and only then, things that I had seen in years began to unravel. And I take no pleasure in what happened, because obviously it really deeply hurt my other family members in what happened next, because what unraveled was her deception, her deceit, how long she had been lying. I'm sure that my other family members went through feeling really stupid, feeling really like hoodwinked, feeling really manipulated. They probably went through their own process of being angry and being upset at that situation. What can we take from this? What we can take from this example that I've given is that willingness to, I told my family members that were important to me, the people I wanted to keep in my life. I told them that they were important to me, and that the door was always open, and I wanted to keep them in my life. But however, while this situation was going on, it was untenable to me, and I no longer was willing to put up with it. So I stepped away from the relationships, knowing that the door was always open to my house, to these family members, just not to that person. And that was that. and that was respected, and I didn't see a few of my family members for quite some time, so it was difficult, I'm not going to lie, but I knew in my heart of hearts I had done the right thing for myself. And that space gave my family, the people who were involved in the situation, it gave my family the opportunity to really look at the situation themselves. And now they had the full brunt of this person who was continually, and they continued to be under, without sounding too dramatical, under the spell of this person. And it wasn't until, after the person decided like they were done with the relationship that they began to see that there had been just this long history of manipulation and lies, because they all started to tumble down and they all started to unfold these, quite serious lies. And she lied about a lot of things. And it started to, they started to see other friends that had been mistreated as well and that had been used. And it was a really hard situation for everybody involved at the time. But I know in my heart that I did the right thing. And in hindsight, I would have perhaps taken that action much, much sooner. And I certainly don't stomach situations like that any longer. There's no better to have a friend than an enemy, which I personally think is some of the worst advice ever. And there is no keeping the peace anymore. If I do not like something, I am true to myself above all else things. So back to your situation here, where you've got this story of we're really believing that the father is manipulating and alienating them from you. One of the things that's going to be really difficult and really, really hard to see, because what we're trying to control in the situation, which is causing the suffering and it was causing the pain in the situation, is that we are trying to control not having our children alienated, not having our children fall out with us, keeping our children in our lives. And we're hanging on so tightly to this idea that we're going to try and keep our children in our lives. One of the things that and it's going to be controversial, so I'm going to just say this here, is to have a willingness to let go, for your children to be completely free, okay? And free to choose. And remember, the truth always rises to the top. So if this person is deliberately manipulating and deliberately alienating, there is a truth that will rise to the top within this. And once those children understand that truth and get to that truth, there will be no looking back, because they will look at the situation and they'll think, wow, but mum never did that. Mum always said we were free to think for ourselves and we were free to choose ourselves. And so mum never behaved in that way. And eventually what will happen is that truth will rise to the top. And so sometimes what we have to do is to really go into the advice of what is the most loving thing to do for ourselves. And sometimes that really is letting go and literally saying, hey kids, your mum loves you so much. And I am always here for you. My door is always open. But I feel like there's a distance between me and you, and personally it's not something that I am enjoying or liking. And but I understand that your dad has a very different opinion from mine. And I'm not about to force my opinion on you. And and I hope that you will always understand that I've always loved you and you've always been important to me. And then there is this aspect of where we have to alter our behavior to stop trying so hard. Stop trying to keep the relationship going. Stop trying to do all of the things. Stop trying to see the father as the enemy, because the more that we see the father as the enemy, we create a pushing action, we get a pushing action back. And there's this constant loggerheads, this constant resistance, this constant push, and we don't actually get where it is that we want to go. Where we want to go is a place, and that's a clear goal that you need to set for this, is that the place that you genuinely want to go is to have a great relationship with your children, while co-parenting by the sounds of things. So we want to have a great relationship with the kids and respecting them, respecting that they have the freedom to choose for themselves, that they are. And it might take a month, it might take longer, it might take a couple of years. And I know that that sounds really, really scary as we're trying to hang on so tightly. But the truth always rises to the top, and I fundamentally believe that. And in this situation that I described in my family, there's children involved as well. And in that situation, you know, that slowly but surely the children have begun to realize and recognize that this person was really, really manipulative. And they're now starting to see more and more of the truth of the situation. And yes, it's taken a wee while, but we've gotten there. And I think this is one of the things that we have to do, is sometimes understand that part of somebody's journey is to be manipulated, is to be alienated. And yes, we can speak out about that, but the moment that we try and control the narrative, the moment we try and control things, is the moment that we step out of universal flow. And but here's the thing, like, our wanting is the universe's wanting. So when we step out of universal flow, because we're trying to human this situation, we're trying to control it, we're trying to get our way, or, you know, at least these people away from this person, or whatever it is that we've got in here. And what we have to do is understand that when there's other people involved, that everybody has free will, and are we fully respecting that free will? And when it's children, it's tricky, right? Because we're like hardwired to want to protect our babies and want to protect our kids. But sometimes, even as when they've been little kids, you know, obviously we don't let them play with plug sockets, and we don't let them play with hot ovens and things like that. But sometimes when you've told a child 3 or 4 times, do not do that because you will hurt yourself, and then they don't listen and they keep doing it, sometimes the most loving thing for that child is to let that child find out for themselves, as long as it's not an, you know, imminent danger of death. But sometimes the most loving thing is for the child to get the ouchie, to really see that, oh yeah, we don't do that, that's not a good idea. But if they don't have the experience that that's not a good idea, then what do we do? You know, what do we do in that situation? And it sometimes it's so counterintuitive as a parent to allow the hurt to happen, but we can create a safe environment in which the hurt can happen. And the way that we do this in this situation is that we make sure that those children are not in the middle of a battleground, that we make sure that we are not fighting, right? Because if we fight, we create the equal and opposite energy from the universe. So we're like, just surrender to the situation and be like, I love you. The door's always open. That's never changed, you know, and I feel like your father is being really manipulative. I feel like it's really alienating you guys from me, but, you know, it's up to you what you guys think. And, you know, the most important people in this situation is you guys. And leaving the door open like that, as opposed to feeling aggrieved, feeling angry at the father all the time, because all we're doing is we're creating that internal energy that is connecting us to the void again and again and again. And part of that anger is the feeling of feeling helpless. And the feeling of feeling helpless comes from the belief that we have a limited choice. The moment we're entering into a belief system of limited choice, we're connecting to the void, we're connecting to the fear and the illusion. So it's about reversing that and changing that narrative, changing that situation, and respecting that your children are intelligent beings and they can figure this out. Believe in the power of your kids. Believe in the power that there's only going to be for so long that they're going to allow themselves to be hoodwinked. Because eventually what will happen is that if you're not fighting and dad's fighting, and then eventually what they'll be like is like, mom's done nothing, like absolutely nothing to you. And it'll be, again, he'll hit again and again and again. And eventually they'll turn around and be like, this is ridiculous. And they'll see the truth in that moment. But equally, if you continue to be in a combative situation or where you're feeling like you have to justify yourself and you have to stand up for yourself and you have to do all of this stuff, what will happen is that you'll create a situation or an energetic situation where other people need to defend the position. Take the defense of the position off the table by giving no position to defend. It's up to you guys. You're intelligent, smart people. You can think for yourself. The moment there's no position for the children to defend is the moment where truth can begin to percolate and rise to the top. Because now we've gone from a doing situation of he's doing this to me and I'm having to do this to keep, push, push, push. We've gone from that to you entering into flow. Father person here might still be in the energy of push, push, push. That's fine. That's his deal. But what we've got left in the middle here is the children, and they'll start to see the truth and they'll be like, but mum's in flow and dad's in push. And I don't like having opinions pushed on me. And that will happen because nobody on this planet enjoys the sensation of having opinions pushed on them. So it's to take that positioning out of the table. And now they've got nothing to defend because you're not creating the combative energy anymore. So now there's absolutely nothing to defend. And because there's nothing to defend, the children become free to begin to see the truth in this situation. And it's a situation that needs to be navigated with a lot of faith. It's a difficult situation. It's a tricky situation, but faith will get you through this situation. And trust in the power of your children, trust in the awesomeness of your children, trust in the love and the bonds that you have with your kids. They will rise to the top with the truth. So I hope that this has been helpful for anyone that is dealing with a manipulative person. What is the most loving thing that you can do for yourself in this situation? And sometimes the guidance will be to step away. And it is hard and it is difficult. And I have been there and I understand it. But I can tell you from personal experience, it was the absolute best thing that I did for myself. I did for my personal family and then my extended family as well. I can see how that action also led to this house of cards that this person had constructed to begin to implode, because I was probably the first person in the history of this person to literally call her crap out. And that probably felt, to a pathological liar, that probably felt deeply, deeply uncomfortable. And the fact that I didn't just call her out, which meant that she could just be combative, I stepped away. So now I was in flow and she was still in combative situation, still manipulating. And it was just a matter of time before the house of cards literally started crumbling. And the situation began to correct itself. And the truth began to move to the surface. And things began changing there. And it's, it was a difficult situation to navigate. But now when I look back in hindsight, I know 100% that I did the right thing when I acted on the guidance, the internal guidance I received, when I asked myself what was the most loving thing I could do for myself in this situation. And I knew by keeping her in my life, I was really just being in a situation where I was really destroying my own inner personal relationship with myself. I did not like who I was becoming. I did not like who I was around her, because I was trying to keep the peace when I was just having a separate conversation in my head being, you are literally just lying to me right now. And it was really not a pleasant situation. And then to continually think or feel bad things about someone who, on a higher perspective, when we look in a higher perspective, clearly has problems, because anyone who lies pathologically or manipulates a lot, you know, they're not happy, well-adjusted people. That's our first error that we make in these situations, is that we believe that they're happy, well-adjusted people. They're not. Nobody who is a happy, well-adjusted person seeks to manipulate or alienate or lie to another person on a consistent and regular basis. They just don't. And the reason is because they're not happy themselves. So that means that these people have all of their own problems too, right? Like there is a whole host and stack of problems for them. And for those problems, I can have compassion. But that doesn't do me any favors in my personal relationship with myself. What I can do is listen to my internal guidance of what is the most loving thing I can do for myself in this situation. And then act on it and be brave when you're acting on it. So that is all I've got for you today, guys. But I hope that you've enjoyed another episode of Into the LightWeb podcast.